Spiritual pride is a very difficult thing. I think it's more harmful than just, you know, pride that's, false pride. I think it really, really harms us.
Yeah.
And, at some point, Hillary, if this transformation, in this transformation, I think it's a leaderless movement. From what I can see, it's a leaderless movement, and it's going to have to be. And we're going to have figure a way to have a dialogue to be able to talk about these things without demonizing one another. And I think shows like your show, shows like my show, and other people like us need to begin to speak to these things and open up dialogues that give people an opportunity to examine their beliefs without having to become defensive to the point where they can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point, George, because it's one of those things where I hate to say it, but I see it a lot, and it's something that we need a check system. We need our own checks and balance system within ourselves. We have to know when we're off center. We have to know when we're coming from our ego. Even if we teach that or what that means, I mean, we still have to find ways to ground ourselves, and we have to know when our energy is extended too much. We have to, we just have to keep constant check-in with who we are and what's going on. And if you find yourself lashing out at other people, it's because there's something going on inside. So it's time to just kind of sit back and check in and see what's going on. And,
Well, see, I think that like so often, if not most of the time, to learn that about ourselves obviously is going to require some self-examination. You go back to Socrates. Socrates said the unexamined life is not worth living, and I'm quite sure that's true. So I think the time of the guru is gone. That's past. I think we needed it when it was here, but but your time is here, and other teachers' times to help people to find how to deal with their own feelings and emotions, how to deal with the reality of this mirror effect you were talking about. That when I see something in you that bothers me, it's really something going on in me. We don't we don't come by that naturally, and we're definitely not taught that as children. For the most part, our examples are usually the opposite of that. So, but I think somehow or other, it's that we're kind of moving along with all this. And thank goodness there's a power greater and higher than you and I, because I don't we wouldn't be able to see how to get the job done at all. You know. So,
well, that keeps us in check too.
oh yeah, well yeah, it helps to keep us right sized, right?
Yeah,
Not too big and not too small,
that's
but
right.
yeah,
That's
but
right.
everything that we can be. Listen, you're doing something that I hadn't really heard of before that sounded pretty interesting to me. The this You're experimenting with Slim Sperling's tools. What's that about? There's a nose mask, and they got an environmental harmonizer,
Oh,
and
you've done your homework.
why sure.
Oh, that's great.
I,
I'm
we,
so happy when I come on shows and people have done their homework because it's so much more fun.
well, yeah, but when I get a really interesting guest, I mean, if I didn't do my homework, we would miss so much. Yeah, no, no.
Well, Slim Sperling, again, this was another kind of occurrence that happened. Somebody had told me about his work and suggested that I interview him, and he passed away a few years ago. So as I looked into his work, it was not an opportunity for an interview, but um, they had mentioned his tools and they had mentioned his work, and I'm a healthy skeptic, and I said, well, okay, let me see. Um, and I checked out online like you did, and I looked at the stuff, and I said, "What?" That was kind of my first expression, but then I read it, and I did some looking into it, and I actually started, I understood the concepts that he was talking about, and it just so happened that the director of the center that I work out of and I teach Reiki out of and do sessions out of happened to have practically his whole collection and
Ah,
offered to lend it to me for 2 weeks. So she packed up every single tool that she had bought over the years, which pretty much was his whole collection. And as you know, that they're not inexpensive tools.
no,
So
they look
we're talking
expensive. Yeah,
several $1,000s worth of tools. And
right.
just gave me a bag and said, have fun. And I, what are the odds again? What are the odds of this? So that's what I did. I took the tools home, and I played around with them, and I could see some energy fields with some of them, and I was experiencing this phenomena that I hadn't read his book yet. So I kind of did everything with this backwards, and so I played around with his tools, and actually I did a few sessions with clients, and then the woman who had lent me the tools, we traded some sessions, and we were doing some experiments with like biosecurity and stuff. And it was really extraordinary how incredibly effective these things were.
Really?
And when I gave them back to her at the end of the 2 weeks, it was like giving back a bag full of my own children. I mean, I really had grown on them, and they'd grown on me. And there were some tools that I really liked, and there were some that I didn't really feel anything with, to be honest with you. But I ended up buying my own, some pieces for my own collection. And I've been working with them ever since, and I incorporate them into my bodywork sessions, into my Reiki sessions. Even when I do readings, I use one of the larger rings to, put on my table, and I do my cards and stuff inside the ring. And I notice a difference when I dream. If I take one of the rings and put it under my pillow at night, my lucid dreaming is enhanced, and I can't describe it any other way, but it's enhanced. And then I read his book. And once I read Slim's book, and the science behind what he's doing, and the education behind, who he was, his story is extraordinary, and I have a lot of respect for him. And he's very, very well educated. He really just turned away from a very profitable career as a scientist and decided he was an earth angel, and he was really just here to create these tools, and that was his job in this lifetime, and that's what he did. And I wish I could have had the opportunity to meet him and to talk to him in person. But, again, this was another kind of spontaneous, event-turning kind of thing for me in my own personal life, and I've incorporated them into my work, and I share them. And when I go do events, I'll bring his tools, and when we set up our ceremonial altars and things of that sort, we use them, and people are drawn to them. It's like children to candy. It's like you just can't bring them anywhere and not have people respond to them. And so they really have made quite a bit of difference in my life personally and professionally, and I would highly recommend anyone interested in them to check them out, because I can attest firsthand that they really work.
Well, you've caught my attention because
them is real.
You've caught my attention because my first reaction when I saw it was the same as yours. I've been down the road. I've been doing this stuff for almost 40 years, 35 years, and it's like, so I've seen an awful lot of things, but I had never ran across this fellow Sperling, so I will definitely follow up on that. Listen, you specialize in what you call raw, wild, primal feminine consciousness, and how to be an oracle in your own ordained joy. What does that mean? What do you do to bring? And the second part of my question is, we're all male and female, each of us. Mm-hmm. Do you work with that energy with males also, or just strictly with females?
No, I love working with men. I love men. I mean, I really love men who come to me and want to understand what that means.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's great. And to be honest with you, I do run a lot of women's circles. I have taught at women's only events, and I have a women's circle. I do a dream circle. We're starting dream circles next month, actually, November. And people can find out that information on my website. They can go to hillaryraimo.com, or I have a meetup group locally where I volunteer as a facilitator once a month to lead women through dreaming techniques and so on and so forth. But men they contact me and they want to know why they can't join. They want to join. But the teachings that I teach are for both men and women, because the energies are in both of us, and we have to understand what that even means, and we have to understand how to build a healthy relationship with both of those energies. This isn't about sexual orientation. This is not about
no.
Or sexually. This is about how your individual energetic imprint affects you and the world around you. And so we come from a divine feminine perspective, and we also have a divine male perspective. And I tell people on a simple level, it's about being and doing. What is your relationship with being? Are you able to be in silence? Some people can't even sit down for more than 5 minutes and not be doing something.
I couldn't meditate. For the first time I tried to meditate, I think it was 1974. I couldn't make it 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I couldn't sit there. I just was an impossibility. Also, Hillary, I've done quite a bit of work on integration on these polar opposites that we all carry around. Our light and dark, and the male and female in me, and that is so important. I think for transformation that men get in contact with that feminine part of ourselves, so that we can stop some of this horrendous war that just has been going on for just since Cain and Abel. So it's good to hear that there's some training going on out there. Do you use some specific texts, or is it just strictly a program that you put together, or have you written something about it?
Well, it is a program that I've put together. It's called my UNtraining. I untrain.
Okay, so that's your untraining energy. Is that what you're?
Yeah. Because we learn how to be a woman, and we learn how to be a man in our
Absolutely.
life. And so those energies create a very distinct and definite pattern within ourselves. And so, it's like putting together a sweater, weaving together a piece of clothing. You almost have to take the thread and pull it all apart and then redesign it, because it's a big task. This is not something that you can learn in a weekend event. You really need to work with somebody, and whether it's myself or somebody else, it doesn't matter. But what I do suggest to people is, when you start working with energy, you need to find somebody who knows what they're talking about. You need to find somebody who understands the ups and downs of working with energy, who's qualified and able to walk somebody through the emotional and mental breakdowns that it can cause, the spiritual breakdowns that it can cause, the physical healing that it can cause. And the reason I say physical healing is because, when we've been sick our whole life, and then all of a sudden we go through the healing process, everything affects us on a physical level. The biological level is affected too.
Absolutely.
So, this is a great responsibility. And, what I've decided to do with my own trainings, and they were day-long, weekend-long kind of put together, where people were really asking me for this information in more of a formal kind of teaching setting. And I said, okay, I'll put this together, and it worked, and I've worked with many great, wonderful people. But what I'm deciding to do, especially through the 2011-2012 gateway that we're going through now energetically, collectively on this planet, is open myself up to being able to work with people more